Welcome to the Boardroom. I'm your host, Ntlalontle, and today we are discussing the upcoming elections in South Africa, and I'm joined one of the leaders of the respective political parties, the Africans Reclaim. I'm joined by General Motau. He's the national chair for the Africans Reclaim. Welcome to the show, General.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yes. Just a brief introduction. Who you are, what you've done, also with the SNDF. Yes, please just introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. What do I say about myself except that I'm amongst those who, in my prime years, I joined the African National Congress and its military wing, Umkhonto weSizwe, around 1974. And then I served in the struggle, rose through the ranks of Umkhonto weSizwe to serve in the High Command of Umkhonto weSizwe. And I was given the responsibility of being the chief of military intelligence of Umkhonto weSizwe until we negotiated during CODESA. I led the MK delegation to the military negotiations, which were very critical for the solution of the problem. I integrated in the SNDF, and I retired in 2009 as Chief of Defense Intelligence. And after some time, was involved in trying to advise the ANC about what our country was going to go through if things don't change. But I should say until 2020, when we had the last meetings, I think 3 of them, with the National Working Committee of the ANC, we realized that we need to do something extraordinary. And we therefore came together as cadres of the ANC, and were joined by a number of young people to form Africans Reclaim as a movement which is armed with a program to actually attend to the challenges our people are facing. And we came together and said to ourselves, what is the nature of the problem? And we then came to the conclusion that the problem is really that from 1994 we have failed to dismantle apartheid and colonialism. We didn't heed the advice of Oliver Tambo, who actually stated that apartheid must be dismantled. It must be totally uprooted. You can't reform, transform it. You must first uproot it. And after having made that decision, we then have to look at what are the actual elements that, underpins the continued existence of apartheid and colonialism in our country. We said from 1994, we are actually become a neo-colonial state, where the former colonizer controls the economy, and the African people manage colonialism on behalf of our colonizers. And we then tried to identify the major elements that underpin and make sure that apartheid and colonialism continue to exist. One was the land question. That an emotive issue of land cannot allow the African people to be involved in the economy, because land is the basic element of wealth. Without land, you can't. And you'll realize there are many issues which we can indicate. You'll realize that the African people, like the Americans, like the Aborigines, and so on, they were actually made to stay in what is called trust land, where you don't have title deeds. And you can't have generational wealth with a house built in Ezinkumbini in the Eastern Cape or in Mlech, in Limpopo, because those are trust lands. They are not, you cannot own that. So that separated an African child from a white child. Because his father left him a house which has got value. You, as an African in the trust land, you were left a house which has no value, because it's built on trust land, which you cannot own as your own. That is one issue. The second issue which we looked at is the poverty in our country, which is actually a manufactured poverty.
Yeah.
To make the African people look inferior at all times. Why do we talk about this manufactured poverty? Is that if you look into the economy of South Africa, the banks are owned by our colonizers. You look at your Reserve Bank, it's controlled by the same banks. There are these pseudo shares which these banks own. They are not really shares, but they are pseudo shares to locate them within the board and the control of the Reserve Bank. So your Reserve Bank is an untouchable, because it is controlled by these banks to manipulate even, the story now recently, to manipulate even the interest rate and the value of the rand as they please.
The markets.
The markets. So that is one critical element in your economy. Secondly is that you will realize that the economic centers of South Africa, or let's reduce it to companies, you'll realize that companies in South Africa are still owned by our colonizers. And they are closed. You can't own shares. And our people make policies which continue to make them junior partners, if they are partners at all. You take BEE, I mean, you think it's a good policy, but it's a policy which says go and beg your colonizers to accommodate you. In South Africa, we are a shocking country where the majority continuously begs the minority to accommodate them, giving 3% for 20 billion, and you own some little shares, so you can't talk because they say, you see, we are accommodating you.
This land question, General, what was the negotiations, as someone who might have been exposed to that history, 1994 CODESA, what was the negotiation with the land issue? What compromise did we find ourselves in?
No, I think it's important to understand and not find ourselves being captured by negotiations. When we negotiated and finally came to a compromise, all negotiations are about compromises.
I like that.
All negotiations. But you see, after negotiations and taking over, we slept on duty. I can tell you, a lot of white people left South Africa to Australia, New Zealand, America, and then Europe, because they knew that we were going to change things. But we slept on duty, and we didn't do it. And that's why, and they came back and said, oh, these people, Actually, they talk about it and say, we should have known that these people are not going to change anything. We could have just ended apartheid long time ago. So, the problem is that our people until today, they still talk about the sunset clauses without even understanding what sunset clauses. I can tell you because I was sitting there with Mandela. I was very close to the old man because of my job. When Kubi Kutsi, I can mention him today, a very man I respect till today, said to us, look, there's a trick. You are going to be asked to pay off all the public servants and the military and the police so that you create your own. That is going to create a crisis, which was going to be serious. How do you run a country with people who have never, take people from Soweto and Kanduli and Muleche, as I said, to come and run a government where they've never seen any instrument of governance. So, what were we to do? The decision which was taken was very correct. Let's negotiate with these guys to give us 5 years. And they agreed with 5 years. Again, we slept on duty. We have never prepared. Until today, we are not prepared. Take the Reserve Bank and the banks. We actually even helped the Afrikaners to consolidate their ownership. We allowed and helped them, to build ABSA. Now, these are the things which our people would like to hold on and say, so we were sold, we were done this, while they should have, they took power and not did what they're supposed to do.
Yes, because the finance minister from that administration, that first administration, I don't know till when, I think even till today, was not someone, maybe you would say neutral. He was put there to guard the wealth for those colonizers you speak about.
Now, let's move a little bit forward, where you find that most of these ministers, they've been made to accept gifts. I'll call them gifts. Your child can go to a better school. You can come and stay in a better place. And they were being tied into an arrangement. Now, that's what neocolonialism is about. They now became the managers of apartheid. Today, our people are managing this situation. Why Africans reclaim wants them to go is because unless you sweep the table and start afresh, we are not going to be able to change things for the better. It's not going to be possible. You are not going to be able to change education. The education in South Africa, the system was created by Verwoerd after he took over in the 60s and created Bantu education. He created a situation where you...
But General, our own intellects and thinkers that came in, because the guys who were in exile were educated. I mean, they were about the systems of governance and all these things. Why was it not enforced that way?
Yeah. Again...
Because we knew exactly
the danger of playing with colonialism and apartheid is that you say, let's transform, let's not rush to change. And therefore, as you continue, you get assimilated. It is a natural process. You get assimilated because let's take from exile. You coming from exile, you had no cent. You don't have a home to stay. Now you come to South Africa, then the only people who can help you to get a home to stay is the banks. The bankers, they say, we can give you, but you don't qualify, but we can just bend the rules a little bit. And so you are being assimilated.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It is a question of a commitment of a person. But the system was created to assimilate the political elite. It was created. And therefore, most of these politicians could not escape to be assimilated. And because they stayed too long without changing things, because the longer they stayed, the more they were compromised. And sometimes, the longer they stayed, they also put their hand into the till and start being corrupt. And immediately that started. Who sees it? It's the same colonizers. Then they start. This is corruption. This is that. And destroy the credibility, even of those who have not been corrupt. The whole of you, the African people, are basically corrupt. You understand what I'm saying? So we found ourselves in a situation that the political leaders became an elite which actually manages. I'm sure most of the politicians today, when they are being called to Inanda, they rush there. When they arrive there, they take their hands and beg for assistance.
Now, General, if now you take over government, to be practical, what would be the first place to start? Because like you are saying, the system as it is today is even more complex than maybe in '94.
Yeah, there are two things I would like to refer to. Firstly, you need a strong and committed leadership for change. That leadership must be armed with a plan. This is a crisis. South Africa is in a crisis. We have people being shot dead in the street everywhere and today. And it is a situation where killing people. People are no longer afraid of taking lives. People are not afraid of the law. The poverty is growing. Unemployment is shot above the roof. So it is a crisis we face in South Africa. So you need a leadership which understands what is the problem, the nature and magnitude of that problem. If you don't understand clearly what is the problem, as I've said, if you don't understand that this is a neo-colonial situation and that certain things are deliberately done, then you can't be a leader of a changing South Africa. You can't be. You need that strong leadership. And I said with that leadership, you need that leadership is able to put in place a plan. Now, that's the reason why AAR has now presented the National Master Plan. You would understand nowhere else in the world was a crisis so sorted out by a manifesto. We adopted manifestos because we're given. It is a given. It is done in Europe, But we are not in Europe.
We're not in Europe, yes.
We are in a country where poverty and wealth and income gaps between the Europeans, our European counterparts in South Africa, and the African people is so wide. It's a country where tensions exist, So we created a national master plan to be able to address the situation. And that master plan talks about the issue of land, as I said. You can't continuously creating schemes saying, oh no, land expropriation without compensation. Well, you know that the Constitutional Court will never allow you to do that. You have that Constitutional Court. Rather than saying, we're going to change, the land will now belong to the people and managed by the state. Those who want land to use it for the purposes of farming and purposes of the economy of this country will apply for land from the Ministry of Agriculture and Land Affairs. So be straight. Let's not beat about the bush. No, let's just make sure we legislate the land shall belong to the people and administered by the state. 2, let's change education. Your education is that you don't have to worry. Just try to scrape through matric. Don't do science and mathematics are very difficult. How are you going to compete with the Chinese, the Koreans and so on, when you can't even understand how this light is made? You can't make a light, we can't make our own phone, we can't make a car. We've got all the mineral resources these people take from us to produce these things. We can't do it because of our education system. That education system creates a mind which is not innovative. But the most critical thing is that that education system creates racism and unemployment. Now, unless you destroy this education system totally and rebuild a single education system, no longer Bantu education and white education, because there are two education. We don't know what others are writing, but we hear they are becoming better. These other Africans are always failing. Are they writing the same thing? Are they going to the same type of education? Let's have one education system. Let's have one examination board. Let's have one like in other countries, admission board, where students are going to be placed by the admission board. Then you won't have students from Tata going only to Uso. And the students from the suburbs of Johannesburg only goes to Wits and Johannesburg. The suburbs of Pretoria to Pretoria University of Cape Town University, and Africans are only accommodated in those universities. It's not their right to be there. Now, these are paid by the states. The state pays for these universities to operate. But they decide to exclude Africans. Now, an admission board will be able to make sure that there are white students at Uso, there are white students at Limpopo University, KwaZulu-Natal, white students in Northwest University. We can't have an institution in South Africa where whites are the majority, because they are a total minority, 7.5%. 7.5%. So you need to change your education. Secondly, you can't have a country where the nation cannot determine the price of what they sell. We dig gold, diamond, and everything. We have been doing that since the 1800s. Send it to Europe, and later on they are happy. They say, today we can give you so much for your gold. And this is the price.
Even other African countries now, Zimbabwe, they're controlling their own resources.
Now, until we do that, these are urgent matters. But you see, you must realize you are in the 21st century. Have strategies and plans that will be able to benefit you. We are saying we will allow you to dig and mine, but you will never sell abroad. You will sell to the Reserve Bank here in South Africa. And the Reserve Bank will create a commodity market where everybody in the world will come, to that market to buy from us. Now, I'll summarize. The Reserve Bank's mandate must be expanded.
Okay.
And we are saying the Reserve Bank, we don't want this foreign influence. The banks in South Africa, out of the Reserve Bank as shareholders, no private shareholders in the bank. And we want a Reserve Bank which is controlled by the citizens of this country, no foreigners in the Reserve Bank. Now, the other thing which is very emotive for our people is the issue that which people don't realize was created deliberately by colonialism to try and make South Africa a country of nobody. They failed to create South Africa as a Australia, New Zealand, or so Canada or something like that. Now, what do? They say open for all their human beings. They are all Africans. Open for them to come here. And foreigners are coming here and taking over everything. Our people can't even run small spaza shops in the townships. If you go to the villages in the Eastern Cape, it's Pakistanis who are running everything. They are producing bricks all over the shore, very cheap bricks which our people build, and then the houses crack and collapse. They have bought, they are gone. Now, what do we do with this? The numbers are too big. Statistics says that there are about 5 million foreigners in South Africa. Not Zimbabweans, not Mozambicans. We are talking about foreigners from England, from wherever, from Pakistan, Indonesia, everywhere. Now, we are saying for us to change in these 5 years, this situation, and we should do two things. Firstly, we must pass the same laws which were passed by Botswana, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, Mozambique, Tanzania, Zambia, where foreigners are precluded from doing small and micro businesses. You can't go and sell shoes or cell phones in Zimbabwe today. They won't allow you. It's a business which must be run by the Zimbabweans themselves. So that is one thing, a general thing which we need to do. But in the meantime, foreigners must give us the opportunity to solve our problems. We should request them to go back home. They must go back home. They must give us an opportunity. And they can't refuse to give us an opportunity. You see, they can't. But they are human beings. We are going to ask them to leave. But if they don't leave, then we will have to take harsher measures. But we just request them to give us an opportunity to solve. We will invite them back once we have sorted our problems out. And the law will then apply. They must bring big money to open big businesses and not in small and micro businesses. So that is one critical element which we want to deal with. I'm not going to deal with the issue of bringing foreigners to come and retire in South Africa because, it's expensive in Europe, because we have got dual citizenship. That must stop. South Africans must be South Africans. The issue of sovereignty. Sovereignty in a democracy rests with the people. We must deal with the issue where the courts can overrule Parliament. Parliament cannot be overruled because it's the will of the people. Only the people decides. You can't have the Parliament making a law and some bloke there in an NGO says, no, this violates human rights. And the judges agree with them. Now, when you talk to the judges, they say it's not us, it's you who created that law. Change, we will change with it. So we need to change that. We need to change. We need to change that. And I've already said, we need to look, we are saying as AAR, We want to remove one word from chapter 1 of the Constitution, which is the Human Bill of Rights. Just one word we want to remove. Justiciable. Justiciable, that's where the problem lies. Just remove that word. We are friends. We are like everybody in the world. Human rights is a vision of the world. It cannot stop the people from changing their own things. The majority must govern. We can't have one individual or two individuals standing up and says, we stop the majority to do what they want to do. Because the word justiciable. You don't have to pass the law as long as there's that chapter and that word. Remove it. Then we are all friends. We love human rights, all of us. We love them. I always asked my colleague when I was still working, they said, your constitution is the best in the world. And I says, why doesn't your country also take it? They said, no, it's only good for you. You understand? And you can't have a situation where there are things good for us, not good for them. That can't work. Now, so we also have to look at the issue of the income and wealth gap in South Africa. You know, from 1652, the Africans were actually made not to be able to benefit from their own country. I've spoken about the Trust Land Act. There are many others. You are not allowed to own property in the township even. You are not allowed to own. So there is no, old money for the Africans. There is no generational wealth for the Africans. So what are we going to do? We are saying we need to create a fund for reparation where Africans will be assisted. It might not be me and you, perhaps, but our children must not be poor in a rich and a country like this. The Arabs in their own, the Gulf states, they will never be poor. Because for every cent which is made from oil, they share it. Because they are all the owners. Okay. So we need to look at this. And we are saying, we have actually calculated and said, an initial investment into that fund must be about 240 billion. But the fund itself must be 120 trillion. We know that people will ask us, where will the money come from? We have made serious calculations. South Africa today struggles to actually collect revenue of about 2 trillion. They're struggling. We always go and borrow money, which we are going to talk about it a little bit. But this country can collect a revenue of not less than 5 trillion a year. I can tell you where the money comes from, but we leave that to SARS. But if they cannot think outside the square and collect the 5 trillion, we are available to help them where the 5 trillion is. And tell them easily, it's very easy. They will get the 5 trillion. So, there is money in South Africa. South Africa is not broke like other people want to create the impression. Yeah. We are broke. We are not broke. Absolutely not broke. But we're just not thinking outside the square. We have been given a template of colonialism.
Yeah, we're not thinking for ourselves. Someone is thinking for us. Yeah.
It's a template. You only think within this. When the money is not enough for the budget, you tax the poor. If it's not enough, go to Europe and borrow. Now, I can tell you, as we sit here today, South Africa has got in the pension fund of people who have died. You know, people died. People die in 5 years, most of them who have died. The pension funds holds about 19 trillion, which you could have tapped in to go instead of going to borrow outside the country.
Or the foreign reserves.
Our foreign reserves are very small. Why? I'll tell you. Our foreign reserves are because we are allowing people to import pasta, to import tomatoes, small tomatoes from Britain and so on and so on. We are a country struggling with our economy is struggling, but you are allowing them to take back the foreign currency. We export valuable commodities and buy back in order to balance the trade. You buy back tomatoes and all that type of things. So you give them gold, they give you tomatoes. You've seen in the shops, supermarkets, you'll find the small tomatoes, which are very bitter and not sweet at all, from England. They're here. The Italian restaurants, which you have allowed, they all import the ingredients of their menus from their own countries. We've allowed that. Then how do you have foreign reserves? You can't have foreign reserves.
Let's talk Eskom, General. What do you foresee as the problem with Eskom and energy? And then there's this talk of renewables. We get rid of coal. We've seen some power stations being shut down, and we are exporting coal to Europe. What do you foresee with
colonialism is a bad thing. How do you explain it? That the Europeans come here and say to us, you know, coal is not good for the environment. It is destroying the environment, and we are facing global warming because people are polluting. Now, the first thing which you should ask, how many power stations does South Africa have? Thermal power stations which use coal. 19. Out of the 19, 5 are decommissioned, are not working. England has got 400. China has got 1,000 something. Everybody has got more than South Africa has. But we have said we must not burn coal in South Africa. Only 14 power stations. You must not burn coal. They actually even go further and says, you know what? We will support you financially to come in and do, experiments. By the way, experiment about these solar renewables, which they are calling them. But as you are doing that, we have got a problem in Europe. We have shot our legs. Russia is no longer giving us coal, is no longer giving us gas, it's no longer giving us crude. So, look, bring all your coal to us. And you can stay in darkness, because we are Africans, we are used to darkness. We are Europeans, we are not used to darkness. Is that a proper way of thinking? How do you explain that? That somebody comes to you and says, yeah, no, it's not good for their health. In my house so that my children eat. Their children can go hungry. Colonialism. Colonialism. Typical. Now, you will look at how our money is actually controlled. We can't print money for ourselves. we must go and borrow another. We call these currencies fiat currencies because they're not supported by gold. We go and borrow dollars from America, from the IMF and the World Bank. We are not allowed to print money. Americans can print money. Again, how do we think?
We can't even build our own nuclear power stations.
No, we have accepted that we will be dictated to. So these are some of the critical things which we want to change. You change that. You change the way you treat our people, the health system. We can't even make sure it's clean in the hospitals because we have privatized health in South Africa. We have made sure that we don't tax, these health insurance schemes so that the rich must continue to go there. The poor must go into these not well taken care of hospitals. So that the poor, they can die as they please. They can die there in those hospitals. We don't tax that. We don't tax car allowances. The rich can buy cars, new cars. We buy second-hand cars, so they are not covered by car allowances. Now, we have inherited a tax system which has been given to us. No attempt to change it. We need to change the tax system. We need to change the tax system. You can't continue with unemployment assistance. 7 million youth released by Statistics South Africa. 7 million youth in South Africa are unemployed. Of that 7 million, 60% are graduates. Statistics South Africa, not General Motau say statistics. Now, we keep on saying we will grow our economy. Firstly, how are we going to grow our economy? What economy can absorb? We're not talking about the elderly who are not. We're talking about the under 35. 7 million of them. What economy can absorb 7 million unemployed people in 20 years? And the number is growing, by the way. And we are saying as AAR, there must be a national service run by the military, which will be able to deal with the issue of unemployment. But not only unemployment, the issue of discipline of our youth, whom we are blaming every day. You don't have discipline, but we don't have mechanisms to instill discipline. The military can do that. The youth don't have skills. That's why we have got foreigners coming to run businesses here, foreigners coming to build here, because they have got skills from their own countries. Ours don't have. The military must start helping us to build skills amongst the youth. Survival skills also. Because in life you need to understand certain things. I mean, you and I were never grown up in families which understood money, of course, because apartheid didn't want us to know that. But our European counterparts, in their own families, they are taught how to run things. They will always maintain. You can't have Anglo-American families not having children who will come through the business environment. So we need to teach our youth business skills to survive. Unless you do that, you'll continue having unemployment. Because in the mind of South Africans, particularly we Africans, we even tell our children, go to school and get a good job. So in our mind is that all of us must be employed, because that's what colonialism and apartheid has been creating. Not go to school so that you can become an innovator. That's why our children will study biblical studies and history of Europe, just to pass through matric and go and look for a job in the public service or and work in a shop, because we are socializing our young people to become employed, and there is no sufficient opportunities to be employed. Then they go and be unemployed, and they get involved in drugs. We blame them. So we are saying a national service run by the military must be in place. Now, I've been saying a lot. When are all these things going to happen? Because a plan must say, this is the problem, this is how we are going to solve it, this is the target dates by which day this thing must have been done, and this is who is going to do those things. Now, when you look at our national master plan, that's what it does. It tells you this is the problem, this is how it must be sorted out, this is who is going to sort out, this is the time frames. It actually makes it implementable. It is not, oh no, it's a manifesto, we grow the economy, we'll do that. It, in all the areas I've spoken about, the plan does put responsibility, time frames, and the target date by which it must have been done. It is a plan, it's not a manifesto. You can't sort out this crisis through a manifesto. Unfortunately not. Europe has proved after the Second World War, General Motau had to produce what came to be known as the Marshall Plan to take Europe out of the crisis of the devastation of the Second World War. Russia did the same. The Molotov plan, Stalin commissioned a plan to get out of the crisis. They had lost 20 million people. How were they going to recover from that, the devastation of that war? They had to have a plan, not a manifesto. We here can't have this crisis solved by people shouting manifestos all over the show. We need to take the national master plan as the blueprint to address the problem. Without that, we can't. Now, what are the critical success factors? How are you going to succeed? There are requirements for you to succeed. Firstly, AAR must win the elections. If we don't win the elections, our people are in trouble. The situation will continue drifting down. Poverty will increase. Crime will increase, So all these woes are going to increase. That's one thing. Secondly, it's important that we must make sure that our visitors from abroad go back home. If they don't go back home, crime will continue. You know how many people nowadays get killed by foreigners. The Zamazamas are holding people hostage in East Rand from Lesotho. So that is critical that these foreigners must go. It is critical. It is critical that we change the tax system. It is very critical. Without changing that, we can change anything. It is critical that you implement the national service. Without the national service, unemployment of the youth will become a problem. The military can handle 100,000 young people at a time. We need to do that.
Close it off, General. We are going to the elections. Just what you want top of mind for the people to give them hope, because there's been all this talk of doom, the elections, some are foreseeing violence, doom that even many publications have been talking about. What do you foresee from these elections and the future of this country, and also with the AAR in mind?
Firstly, let me say AAR see these elections not as ordinary elections. See these elections as a referendum. Our people must go to the polls to decide whether they want to remain into this mess or they want change. That's very important. Now, on what is going to take place during the elections, it depends on a number of factors. If AAR is seen to be coming, because the reason why AAR will not be supported financially and is not covered by the media, the public media, is because its agenda is not palatable to the colonial, neo-colonial system. Now, if the AAR can be seen to be going to win these elections, you can expect violence to derail the elections. But if AAR is seen not to be a factor, because, as I said, is AAR for change with the business, the master plan, and the rest on the other side, who are going to maintain the system, or not change it. There is no party which talks in its manifesto or in its political program about real change. No, talking about taking great R taking grade R to primary school. How does it change the things in it? Talking about increasing a little bit the grants by 20 rand. Others want to increase by 100 rand, but others by 1,000. Of course, they don't have a plan. They are just talking. Others are talking about maintaining the 350 because it changes the life of our people. How can a 350 change the life of? How can it? So all these political parties are talking. They are talkers, I say, and they are funded because they don't upset the status quo. They maintain it. And somebody was an analyst says, the good thing about the ANC is that there is political certainty. It's political certainty. It doesn't change, doesn't upset the apple cart. So all these political parties are on the other side of this referendum. And AAR is this side. Now, as I said, if it can be seen that we are going up against all odds, because the odds are stacked against us, but we are revolutionaries, we are going to soldier on. So, if this side is winning, because at the present moment the arrangement of the rich is that this ANC is no longer trusted, even if they have captured it. You see, once you fight imperialism, they don't forget. They don't forget and forgive. They don't. So it has been arranged It is already in the pipeline. Make sure that there is no longer going to be a party which commands the majority. So that they cannot change things. If the ANC and the DA are there, is colonialism and the oppressed together, nothing will change, is obvious. So if that is going to continue as it is, the political parties, even before the elections, there's already horse trading. Who do we want to go with in the coalition? It's arranged.
Even I saw there's the parties that have got together, and for instance, they've taken like a certain direction on Eskom and different things with
And Eskom is a simple thing, by the way. You just stop the export of coal until Eskom has got enough coal. Because the problem now, we are burning a lot of diesel. That's why they're increasing the tariffs.
The tariffs,
yeah, because of diesel. We are being made to use diesel, but diesel is a fossil fuel. So,
once again, the poor is taking the north.
The poor we finance. Was when you get 1,000 rand, you need to go and buy from the shop, and there's 15% VAT. That means on your 45% tax, you add another 15%, is 60%. So only money you have in your pocket is 40%. But anyway, when we go to the elections, you can expect, it's predictable. If you see AAR going up, no, there might not be free and fair elections. But if you see all these other parties doing well, they have got placards all over. Those placards are on the polls. People see their faces, but they don't know what they stand for. But psychologically, they're saying choose between this one who's beautiful, who's attractive, and so on and so on. That is a fashion show. It's a fashion show. We put placards there. Choose that one is Ramaphosa, that one is Zuma, that one is Steenhuisen. This one is. So it's a fashion show. It is nothing to do with the people. The people must see and choose from the billboards. When those people appear to be appealing, the fashion show is working, then there will be free and fair elections.
There you have it from the boardroom. I'm your host, Ntlalontle, and I was joined here today by General Motau of the Africans Reclaim as we come down to the national elections here in South Africa. Goodbye.